At dusk, there came a turning. There was a moment when all was known. You could feel beauty rising.
Pam,
Am I in the right?
is it all right if
She can stay there. It's kind of cool.
I just need that computer to record Sue on?
Oh, so then.
Oh, yeah.
Here, okay.
But you can leave that screen up.
Yep,
Well,
and then I'll look at it later. I just want to make
Okay.
sure we're not, I'm reading the terms of use of the PSAs to make sure we're.
222222. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sue, let me hear you.
1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, sounds good. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Sue Skaskew in the studio. Good morning, honey. How are you?
JD, thank you for having me again.
I am so delighted to have you in here. I was talking yesterday on the air about the cold weather and pets being outdoors this time of year. Not a good thing. And, you know, Sue, I posted a photograph yesterday on Facebook, which really got the attention of so many of our Froggy listeners here in Central Vermont who are just disgusted by the photograph that they saw of this dog. Obviously a true story that was left out in the cold in an enclosure. Actually, not an enclosure. It was a cage.
An open wire cage.
Yeah, an open wire cage. And this dog didn't make it. Actually froze to death while it was biting the cage to try to get out.
That is an image I will never forget. It was so upsetting to me. And we know that this is happening right here in Vermont.
Well, you've seen this yourself over in Bethel, what, a couple of years ago, right?
About 7 years ago, we responded to a cruelty complaint. And when we got there, we approached a snowbank in the back of the house, and a little paw was out of the snowbank. And we dug out a dog that we have on a poster that we post around the state with a number to call if people see acts of cruelty to report. But it was the most heartbreaking thing, thinking about this poor dog freezing to death.
Well, I think most of us have a grasp on what hypothermia is and what frostbite is, but do you think it affects animals any different?
I don't think it affects animals any different at all. Hypothermia is an abnormally low body temperature. It's a dangerous condition that requires immediate medical attention. And it occurs, you know, when your body loses more heat than it can produce. It's usually the result of being exposed to very cold temperatures, and we've had them for the past couple weeks now.
Yeah, we have. I think they're calling it the polar vortex. It's basically a blast of North Pole air that has made a very low sweep across the country, and even folks down in Florida and Georgia and southern states are really, in Tennessee especially, feeling the impacts of the cold weather. But you know, any time of year, you've got to be thinking about your pet being outdoors, no matter what's going on, even if it's extreme heat. And I know you and I have talked about this before, Sue, but with this weather, especially folks are not used to this, especially down in these southern states. You've got to have a grasp of your pet and how safe they are, and you know, whether or not they're in an enclosure that's, you know, blocked from the wind.
Right.
They've got a water dish that is heated, that it's going to stay liquid, that there's adequate food, you know, and a heat source too.
Right. Food, water, shelter, sanitation, medical attention. No torture, no torment.
Frostbite. Let's talk about frostbite. Can dogs and cats get frostbite?
Oh, I think any living being with tissue can, because frostbite is frozen water in body tissue. Like burns, frostbite injuries can be ranked in severity. The first degree frostbite is the mildest. Fourth degree frostbite is the most severe, and it may result in the loss of the affected body part.
So we got what? Toes, ears, fingers, any extremity.
Nose, feet, lips, corneas.
And you know, even during the winter, dogs' feet sense the colder weather, and they grow an extra layer of hair and a thicker pad underneath their feet, but still they can get frostbite. And how many times have you seen a dog outside, Sue, that's limping and showing signs of pain. I mean, would you want to be outside barefoot this time of year?
I don't want to be outside at this time of the year anyway.
Yeah.
But the causes, and also you'll see the tips of ears that have actually been burned off.
Yeah,
That's a sign of frostbite. But it happens when the skin is exposed to freezing temperature.
sure.
And this can cause the body tissue to freeze. Ice crystals actually form within the frozen body part, and the blood can't flow adequately, and it causes the frozen tissue to be deprived of blood and oxygen.
And it turns black.
Yeah. And rewarming may also ultimately lead to tissue death.
Sure, sure. Especially doing that too quickly. But, you know, you and I were just chatting off the air a little while ago that it can take, less than 5 minutes for human tissue to become frostbite.
That's right.
You know, and then, you know, aside from the ridiculous temperatures here, you throw in the wind chill factor, and, I mean, it's not a good combination.
We don't live in a very forgiving part of the country when it comes to cold weather.
No, we
And
don't.
that's why right now we're getting so many calls about short-haired dogs that aren't adapted, and they're not suited for Vermont winters to
Sure.
be left outside without
Yeah.
proper shelter.
And I have a boxer. You've met Badgley.
Yes, we have.
You've seen her, and she's a beautiful girl, but again, she's got just a thin layer of hair on her. It doesn't provide any warmth,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So we'll take a quick break in tape here on this end. Not sure about your end. So where do we want to go next?
How is the volume on that?
It's perfect.
Nice.
How about 2?
It's perfect. So 2A?
2A, B, and C.
So we already started 2A, really.
What do you think, Sue, that you would be great?
Or get on the-
Outdoor housing.
With the
Yeah.
statute.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, this is his statute?
Yep.
It is.
All right, let's do it.
This sums up the statute.
Mm-hmm.
So,
All right.
and I don't know, did you want him to talk about the tether, and maybe you could talk about the
Absolutely,
tether with
sure.
me,
Yeah.
because sometimes the tether
Let's get it all.
is a chain, and the chain actually causes
Freezes
freezing,
into the ground.
and they can't even get into
Right,
there.
exactly. It's a good point.
Their
That's a great point.
sanitation.
We'll call them sport dogs.
All right.
Not so much look at me,
Yeah.
but go to that side of the mic and turn.
Like this?
Why not?
It-
This side of the mic?
Yeah, all you have to do is, nope. You
This
can,
side of the
as
mic.
long as you can hear yourself. But just, you're right here, and I still see the side of your face, and you could look up, but that would look weird. But if all of a sudden, if you still could get the same,
Oh,
I
I
don't
see.
know if you can get the
All right,
same
yeah.
audio.
Yeah, I
I
can do
could
that.
at least see your face.
Yeah.
You don't even have to be looking at the
I got you. Yeah, no problem. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. So, Sue, there's a statue that's in Vermont right now about what? Adequate shelter.
Let's do that over. Statute.
A lot
Oh,
of people
what
make
did I
that
say?
mistake.
Statute.
Yeah, it's statute.
3, 2, 1. So, Sue, there's an actual Vermont statute now about adequate shelter for dogs outdoors,
There
cats
is.
too.
It's Chapter 13, Title 8.
Tell me about it.
I'm sorry.
I wouldn't even.
Okay, I won't do that.
I
I'm
don't
sorry.
think
Because all of a
that
sudden it's like
means
it's a title or chapter. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
don't even-
apologize.
I wouldn't even.
Okay,
People
go ahead.
want to know more information, they can.
Okay, if you want to give me the lead in.
All right. So, Sue, there's actually a Vermont statute that you were telling me about a little while ago that assures animals of adequate food, water, shelter, sanitation. Tell me about that a little bit.
Specifically, what I'd like to talk about this morning is what outdoor housing must provide. Why anybody would leave a dog outside 24/7 is beyond me in the first place.
Me too.
But they need protection from the wind, the draft, excessive sun, rain, and other environmental hazards. They have to be insulated from the cold. They have to have protection from any draft entering their shelter. An open entrance doesn't do it. You know, you see dog houses with the open hole.
Sure.
It doesn't provide the dog any ability to maintain any generated body heat that it may or may not generate if it's got enough insulating material. Sufficient bedding. That's often a problem. We just did a cruelty case, and the person who had well over 40 dogs had 1 to 2 inches of matted material in the bottom of an open doghouse.
Where was this? What town in Vermont?
This was in Cabot, and the doghouses themselves were not insulated. These poor dogs are in a horrible state. It's a horrible thing. Heavy chains on them, and another thing, chains freeze into the ground
Sure.
that prohibits the animal from being able to go into the shelter if the chain is frozen.
Yeah, you've got a picture of that instance right here in front of me that I'm looking at from this dog in Bethel. Chain frozen right into the ground, simply couldn't make it to its shelter.
That's right. And that shelter included, it was a dog house with, it had no insulation. It had no floor. They hadn't gone out to feed this poor dog in a couple days. This poor little thing had a miserable ending. Just miserable.
What about the folks that have a flap in their door so the dogs can come in and out?
Inside their house?
Yeah.
I love it. I have that for my cats.
All right.
And I'll tell you what, in the winter, they don't want to go out. They might go out for 5 minutes and then they're right back in.
But they have the choice.
They have the choice. They have the choice. Dogs chained outside have no choice. And when the temperature is cold at night, JD, it's horrible for them.
These animals are that are outdoors are trying to sleep in minus 10 to 20 degree weather. It was 25 below at my house last Friday night. They're not sleeping.
They are not sleeping. They're shivering. They're desperately trying to stay alive. And dogs do die. It's a very common thing that dogs freeze to death at night when they're left outside.
So we talked about, I'm just reading your notes here.
You can hold up. You know what? My hand got in the way when I was telling you to. I can't see my hand so well. So you can actually hold up that picture for a minute, and I'll place that when you're talking
Okay.
at one
Do
point.
you want me to hold it up right now?
Yeah. Let me get a good. Why don't you come in so I don't wreck your. Oh yeah, hold the whole thing down, and I'll. That's all. Just
Oh,
hold it up a
Number
little
two.
higher. Can you hold that up a little higher?
I just like that little thing that says,
I'll try to.
this
Everything's
is somewhere else.
backwards.
yeah.
And I'll
the
take
one
a snap of that.
page
Okay,
that I
great.
had,
Good.
I can snap it later.
All right.
not on here, I gave it to you.
should we do, oh, Dr. Morell's thing, the adequate housing.
Because it says, something about like the principals should be behind it.
This is
I
a
don't
good
know
one.
if it's-
Okay,
it's a good thing.
but if we,
Ideally, say those are the bare bones under the
Okay.
statute.
all right, I can talk about Dr.
All right.
Morell's.
Yeah.
Ideally, however, and this is the principle.
All right. So can I lead in on it? For at least for my sake, for radio.
Yep, and how
All right.
about, this is something that we use, a veterinarian, Dr. Lynn Morell,
Okay.
our veterinarian, in 2000 wrote for us
Okay. All
When
right.
regard to-
drafting
all right.
legislation.
when drafting legislation.
Okay. So here we go on that.
Hang on a sec. Let me, good.
So here we go. Coming down, 3, 2, 1. So Sue, I'm hoping to get in touch with a gentleman by the name of Trevor Page. He runs Whisker Docs, which is a 24/7 Ask a Vet helpline. To chat with him a little bit about this. He wrote an article saying that emergency vets right now are seeing a spike in patients as this brutal temperature has its grip still on the United States. This is sweeping across the country right now. I know you've been in touch with some vets right here in the great state of Vermont as well.
Yes, whenever we have a cruelty case, we always put it out to a couple veterinarians to ask for their opinion. And if we do have to go in and seize an animal or animals, we need to take a veterinarian. Veterinarians are the best, but they also work 40, 50 hours a week, so you never know who you're going to get when, but they have a very good grasp on what is needed. And one veterinarian wrote for us in 2000 his recommendations, and when we passed the legislation, JD, he was right there and he testified. And a couple of the points he made: a well-insulated house is a necessity.
Right.
The floor should be insulated as well as covered with dry bedding such as beanbag dog bed, straw, or kiln-dried sawdust. It should be no lodger for the dog necessary to stand comfortably and turn around. The door should be fitted with a flap. And you talked about a flap. Dogs pull flaps out. We found the best thing for a flap is a truck flap, bolted in, cut down the middle. or other such device to break the wind. The principle is that the dog's own heat should be allowed to build up in the house due to the insulation, bedding, and lack of wind.
We had a post yesterday on Facebook from one of our listeners talking about styrofoam coolers with cats, with regard to cats. What do you know about that?
Oh, we use them. VVSA provides cat boxes with bedding for outdoor feral cats, and Susan Fleming, who is part of VVSA, and she's in New Hampshire, she does an awesome job of taking styrofoam boxes, enclosing them, and outdoor cats use them.
Interesting.
It's good.
And you know, we talk so much about dogs, but it's cats also, but it's also bunny rabbits, and it's livestock, it's pigs, it's goats. It doesn't just end with the domestic animals.
It doesn't, and we just got a call a few days ago. Somebody had moved out and left 2 rabbits behind in Tunbridge. So we went there, and it's going to be tough catching these guys. But water is another thing that we should talk about. The statute requires potable water, and that means drinkable. It's not the snow, it's not the ice,
Right.
and they need enough water, thawed water, at least 2 or 3 times a daily, and be fed a good, high-quality, high-energy food in adequate amounts.
So horses too.
Oh.
Absolutely. You know, and what's amazing is I know if you go to Tractor Supply, just like I did a couple of months ago, I bought a bowl that plugs in and it keeps the water potable for our chickens. You know,
You got chickens?
Yeah, we've got chickens. So, you know, and we've got a heat lamp that's it's been wired in safely into the chicken coop. So they've got a heat lamp going. They've got the water, and of course we've got to give them food. We check on them all the time. Some people might even think I'm crazy to know that we've actually rigged up a camera inside the chicken coop so that we can see them without having to go outside into the elements.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
Well, maybe I am a little crazy.
No,
but
it's not.
We're
I mean,
just making sure that they're okay.
It's called responsible.
That's right. Yeah. And, you know, you talk about responsibility, and this is something I posted yesterday on Facebook. Listen, we're not all meant to be pet owners. We're not all cut out to own dogs, which are a lot of responsibility. And in many cases, much more than cats who are so independent. Dogs are like kids. They need you all the time. If you're not a responsible enough individual, if you don't have the finances or the income to be able to support the costs of a dog, just make sure that animal gets to somebody who can.
I just had a call day before yesterday in Woodstock. Somebody moved out and left 2 dogs in a trailer.
Yeah,
Why?
exactly. I know volunteers have been making their way through St. Albans. A story that broke yesterday. A woman saw someone throwing a pet carrier with 5 kittens in it out of her car window at the intersection of Jewett Ave and Kellogg Road in St. Albans. She called the police, of course, and they managed to catch 3 of the kittens, bringing them to the Franklin County Humane Society, where they're going to be available for adoption, but the other 2 still don't know where they are. Hopefully they made it through the temperatures last night. It was down in the single digits. Slowly it's going to be warming up here. By the weekend, we're going to be well into the 40s, but still, Sue, it's wintertime, and these cold temps below freezing are going to be coming back.
That's right. We're not. Are we halfway there yet?
I don't think so. I don't think so. We got a ways to go.
Yeah. I'm counting the days.
But you know, just be responsible, and if you have any questions about, you know, how to take care of a pet that spends the majority of its time or all of its time outdoors, get in touch with VVSA. And you guys have a toll-free number?
No.
All right.
But
Edit
it's
that. What's your phone number?
802-672-5302. Or if you see abuse going on anywhere in the state, there is a toll-free number to call. It's 1-877-9-HUMANE. And speak up. And don't give up until something's done. Too many times we find people, they make the call, and then for whatever reason, law enforcement doesn't follow through.
Sure.
A humane society might be busy. A humane society might not do cruelty investigations.
Sure.
Make sure the situation changes before you stop. Don't give up.
Police over in Sprakers, New York, responded to a story about the Flat Creek Border Collies kennel where dogs were frozen to death. One dog even appeared to be frozen to the ground, unable to move. The other dog, and we posted a picture of this, with this dog actually frozen to death while it was biting the metal cage trying to get out, and that's where it died. And that is how it died right there. And police showed up at the property and told some of the concerned citizens that dialed in the call that there was nothing they could do about it. What do you say about that?
I say that's a lie. That's not the truth. That's not. They just didn't want to do anything about it. And that's where you have to get involved. You have to speak up, and you have to speak loud and clearly. Every state has animal protection laws. It's the responsibility of the police to investigate and to do something about it. And this is a line that one really needs to keep in mind. Abusers do not stop to count the legs of their victims.
Sure.
If they're going to abuse an animal, they're likely to abuse a child. They're likely to abuse a senior. Speak up. Be the voice of the people and the animals that have no voice of their own.
There's a page on Facebook that you really ought to check out called Lost and Found Animals of Vermont. And I'm on there all the time. There was a beagle just out where I live that's been out. I mean, hunting dogs, first let's understand they're not Arctic breeds, right?
Well, hunting dogs are just a dog with a career.
Sure.
They're a dog. And short-haired...
And a great nose.
And you're absolutely right. And short-haired hunting type breeds that are not genetically suited for Vermont winters without proper shelter don't make it all
Sure.
the time in this state. You know, dogs have to be protected from the wind and the draft and other environmental hazards throughout the entire year, but most especially in the winter.
So, can you actually get in trouble? What's the penalty? Is it a monetary penalty? Can you go to jail if you're found guilty of neglect or abuse? What is abuse? It's a kind of a gray area.
Well, abuse and torture, they're also in the statutes, but you're absolutely right. The police have the ability to write a ticket, the same way you would have a speeding ticket for neglect, abuse, torture, torment, inadequate food, water, shelter, sanitation, medical attention. And at that point, the state attorney has the ability to look at that and decide whether they want to pull that in for a court case. But if somebody wrote a ticket out to me and it's one violation per, an animal exposed outside, all right, somebody in Bethel left for 4 days, left their black lab outside and went away. They said they put food down. They made no arrangements with people to care for the animal. So that dog maybe had dry food, it had inadequate shelter, it had no water, so that could have been a ticket written for inadequate food, water, shelter. We don't know, probably not sanitation, medical attention, who knows. But a ticket could be written for each of those violations. Again, if the situation elevates to where it is an egregious crime, it can be taken into the state's attorney's office for prosecution. Animal abuse is a crime.
Well, knowing that animals are outside on these bitter cold nights like we've had, Sue, I don't know about you, but it makes my heart sink. I want to go out there. I want to give these animals some relief. For them, it's almost like a concentration camp, like they're inhabitants at a concentration camp is what I think of. I mean, and tonight is nothing really that different from last night or the night before. It's warming up a little bit in Vermont, but certainly not enough that could prevent an animal from dying. They struggle to get through a night knowing that they could die and that they could literally freeze to death. And, owners emerge the next day. They come home from work or from a couple hours away, and, they find a frozen dog dish that's not able to be consumed by a dog. Dogs can't drink water that's frozen and that's turning into slush. It's ridiculous. And these animals that are survivors, they're still going to greet their owners with a wag of the tail and happy to see them day after today. and it's not right.
It breaks my heart because while those dogs are subject to outside, night after night, day after day, the person goes into the warm home, cranks up the fire, goes to sleep.
Sure. Not everybody sleeps with their dogs like I do.
Or my cat, like I do.
And, and you remember Buddy. I mean,
do.
he had his flannel tartan sheets with a down pillow, electric blanket. He had his own down pillow. Underneath a down comforter, gotta be queen size. Memory foam. Dogs, they all don't live like that.
Every dog
And
should
I know
have-
that.
Every dog should have that ability and that love and that attention. And I think truly if we work together, I thank you for this opportunity to get this information out to people. Little by little, we can make it happen.
Yeah. Well, the bumper sticker in the back of my truck that says my dog is a human, and I understand and respect that not everybody is as passionate about owning a dog or even loving a dog as much as you do and I do. But still, you've got to keep in mind that they are living, breathing creatures who are suffering just as much as you would, and just because you think they're a dog doesn't mean they're any tougher than you are. Bring them indoors, and if you can't, make sure they've got an enclosure that is adequate from the wind, from the wind chills, that there's a heat source in there, that there's potable water that is staying liquid all the time, that the food is not freezing, that they've got some hay in there or some kind of barrier from their feet to the elements, and check on them every couple of hours. And if you can't, have a neighbor do it, but make sure it's done.
That's right. You're absolutely right, JD. And if not, speak up.
Absolutely.
Tell somebody.
What's your phone number one more time over in Bridgewater?
802-672-5302. And if you see something statewide and you want to report it, the number to call would be 1-877-9-HUMANE.
All right. Sue Skaskew is the host of For the Animals. Can you tell our listeners real quick about your program on TV?
It's on all the Vermont public access stations. It's called For the Animals. We've just recorded our 140th. Andrea DeVito is our awesome production manager. And we tackle all different types of subjects, and we invite people to call us if they have ideas.
Right. Quick shout out to Pamela, too, now. Come on.
Pamela Dean is our office manager, and we're rocking.
Yeah. You guys do an outstanding job, and I thank you so much for coming in this morning. Hopefully people are going to take heed to this. And again, if they have any more questions, to call you at the Vermont Volunteer Services for Animals. And that number one more time, Sue.
802-672-5302.
Over in Bridgewater.
In Bridgewater.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, JD, very much for having us.
You guys rock.
Was that fun?
Out this window, I sometimes stare at the bending trees with long white hair, dreaming in the falling light on a snowy night, on a snowy night, on a snowy night. At dusk, there came a turning. There was a moment when all was known. You could feel